Okay, you're welcome back. So let's get going on the jumpsuit. Now, if you have watched my videos on trouser making, you would know that if you want to make a trouser, you want to cut the front, of course, you would need to fold your fabric like this into two to get the two fronts, right? Now, I'm not going to be doing that in this video. I've shown you how to do that before. I'm not going to be doing that in this video, right? So we just want to assume this fabric is on a fold. Now please, this is our fabric. Take this as your fabric. Whatsoever I'm doing here, you can do it directly on your fabric, right? So take this as your fabric, and let's assume we have folded this fabric. You can go watch my videos on basic trousers and you're going to see what I'm talking about. But let's assume this is our fabric and we have folded. I want to draft out my trouser for jumpsuit, not a regular trouser, a trouser I want to join with the top to get the jumpsuit. The very first thing I want to give is my ½ inch at this point here, which is going to be my side seam allowance, right? This is ½ inch all the way down. Remember, you must first fold your fabric so that you can cut out the two fronts at once, right? So this is ½ inch here. You just give it by the side here, right? You can go for 0.75 if that is the convenient seam allowance for you, but for me, I use ½ inch in sewing my side seam, right? So this is okay for me, right? So we'll have this, and then we can now measure. Now, the first thing I want to give here is another ½ inch. Now, why am I giving this ½ inch here? You know, this is a trouser we want to be using as a jumpsuit, right? So we'll be joining it at the end of the day to the top, right? Remember, a jumpsuit is a combination of a trouser and a top. You are going to join this trouser to this top, right? So that is why I'm going to give ½ inch here. This is another difference between a trouser for a jumpsuit and a regular trouser, right? You don't do this for a regular trouser, right? So we are giving this ½ inch here, and you know what it is meant for. It is meant for the joint between the trouser and the top, right? So we have this ½ inch here. So you must give this, please. If you're doing this on your fabric, you have to give that, right? So with that, the next thing I want to do is to bring out my trouser block, to draw out my trouser block. And how do I do that? Our trouser block, as we already know from the previous video on trousers, is simply your hip divided by 4. Now I have brought out the measurements here. This is my waist circumference 32. That is at the point where the top and the trouser would join. The circumference there is 32. That's the waist, right? So 32. My hip is 40. My thigh circumference here is 24. My round knee here is 18 inches, and then the ankle is 16, right? Those are the measurements we'll be using in this video, right? So like I said, I want to draw out my trouser block. And how do I get that? Simply my hip divided by 4. Now my hip circumference there is 40 divided by 4 gives me 10, right? So from this ½ inch here, please, you mark your 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, all the way down, 10, right? Like so. So you can now join this, together to get your trouser block line all the way down, right? Of course, you won't be using a marker on your fabric. You'll be using your tailor's chalk or your fabric pen, right? Whichever one, right? So we have this, and then of course we have already in the previous video helped ourselves out by calculating this derived measurement. How did we get them? By subtracting 18 from each of these measurement down here, right? So we are not going to be talking much on that. My waist to hip is 8. This is the 8 here. My waist to crotch depth is 12. This is the 12 here. My waist to knee is 23. This is the 23 here. The full length of my trouser is 43. This is the 43 here. And of course, we will not be leaving our trouser that way. We will be folding it in at the base at least 2 inches or 2.5. Let me give 2.5, right? So that is extra 2.5 there. So I will simply place my lines there. This is my trouser plus folding allowance. This is the actual length. This is the knee. This is my crotch depth. I'll push this one out a little bit. This is my hip, and of course this is the waist. And with this you can proceed to do the normal trouser procedures, right? What do we do? The first thing I want to do in this case, I want to bring out my thigh circumference. You simply divide your thigh circumference by 2. My thigh circumference is 24 divided by 2 gives me 12. So 12 from this half inch here is like this, 2 inches out of the trouser block, right? And then I will also find the middle of my thigh so that I will bring out my plumb line, right? Your plumb line is situated at the middle of your thigh, right? So we have middle of 12 to be 6. I go down, mark middle of 12 to be 6. I go down, mark middle of 12 to be 6. I go down, mark middle of 12 to be 6. And I join all of these lines together from the thigh, and this is my plumb line, and I'll be using it to centralize my measurements, right? Like so. So we have this. Now what do we do with the plumb line? You use it to centralize your measurement. Now let's talk about the knee. My round knee is 18. 2 pieces makes up the knee, so you divide your 18 by 2. 18 divided by 2 gives us 9, and this is how and where the plumb line comes into play, right? That's 9 inches. I'm going to place 4.5 of it. Let me use a different marker for this. My 9 inches, which is a round knee, remember this is our knee line, please. My 9 inches, which is a round knee from 18, I'm going to place, that's 9, I'm going to place 4.5 inches of it here, and the remaining 4.5 here, right? That is knee. And the same thing happens at the ankle here. My round ankle here, my round ankle is 16. 2 pieces makes up the ankle, so 16 divided by 2, 8. The 8 will be distributed equally. We have 4 here, and we have the remaining 4 here, right? So that is it. We'll be connecting those points when it is time, right? You go to your waist. What do? You simply retreat back from this line here by ½ inch. Then you can simply measure out your waist divided by 4 if you want to do the regular method. If you want to do your waist allocation, of course you are free to do so, right? But in this case, let's just go normal. Waist divided by 4 gives us 8 there. 32 divided by 4 gives us 8. This is my 8. And don't forget to add your ½ inch for seam allowance there, right? So we are going to be connecting this together, right? So let's first connect the actual measurements here. This is waist to hip, you see, right? Waist to hip, like so. And that goes to our thigh here. Then from thigh to knee, like so. And then of course from the knee to ankle. And you want to make sure that you measure 2 inches up here. We are going to be using that 2 inches or 2.5. You're going to measure it up there. We'll be using that later on. Now from our ankle, this is where the other one is here, the point here. I connect that to my knee, right? And from the knee, of course,